just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay, we're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead.
The FBI and local authorities are calling it one of the largest drug raids in that county's history.
10 kilograms of cocaine found inside the governor's own office. Not hidden in a tunnel, not buried at the border, brought straight into the heart of Georgia's government, carried by the man appointed to represent the state's western region. This wasn't a cartel warehouse. This was the seat of public trust turned into a supply line. This wasn't an outside threat. This was betrayal wearing a government badge. If you want to see how deep the rot goes, we go deeper. At 3:38 a.m., the streets of Atlanta, Georgia were still quiet. The hallways were quiet. The Georgia State Executive Office was breached. The DEA, backed by FBI tactical units, moved through the hallways like a shadow cutting through stone. No screams, no warnings, just steady footsteps and the cold weight of what they knew they were about to find. A steel door broke open with a loud bang. The sound echoed through the office like thunder. Inside, stacks of job briefs and framed photos sat on desks, symbols of public trust. But trust had been broken. On the conference table lay a sealed courier box. But when the agents opened it, the truth stabbed them like a knife to the heart. 10 kilograms of pure cocaine, a .45 caliber pistol, and an envelope containing $61,200 in cash. And standing at the desk, the man in handcuffs was Marcus Darnell, Deputy Director of the Governor's Office of Western Georgia. A man paid to serve the public, a man who had spoken of integrity on camera. But now he was caught with enough cocaine to supply several cities. This betrayal was deeper than any drug bust, because when the people who were supposed to protect the system began poisoning it. If you're still watching, you understand this isn't about drugs, it's about infiltration. Not everyone stays when the truth gets uncomfortable, but if you're still here, it means you don't look away. After Marcus Darnell was arrested, the DEA digital forensics team started with the laptop from Darnell's desk encryption, military grade, not standard for any state office, not something found 3 doors down from Governor Brian Kemp's main chamber. The FBI's cyber unit worked for hours. No breaks, no guesses, just code. When the screen finally unlocked, the operation went from one man to an entire network shipping records, distribution schedules, deep encryption layered over plain text maps. This wasn't an outside threat. It came from inside the system badges. Titles, oaths, broken from within. 18 months of activity, all of it state-linked. The cartels are masking meth tablets, pressed clean to look like Adderall. No smell, no powder, just poison, fake pills, fentanyl capsules.
Investigators say the intel helped them track down drugs inside shipping containers hidden inside frozen fish. In another case, hollowed-out pineapples carried cocaine from Costa Rica to Spain. In the U.S., the operation led to the indictment of 17 people specifically involved in distributing the encrypted devices, but not all of them are accounted for just yet.
Crystal meth sealed in medical bags, straight out of Sonora, straight into Georgia. This wasn't being smuggled past the system. The system itself was being used to move it. These were part of approximately 800 pounds of narcotics seized earlier in the operation, 23 shipments in total. Each one weighs between 9 and 26 kilos. Every box pushed through Georgia's state-run postal network, with drop-offs logged at Savannah docks, Macon storage units, and rural warehouse hubs west of Augusta.
Working together, the Savannah Police Department and Georgia State Patrol removed 16 guns and a large amount of drugs off the streets.
Not in secret tunnels, not in back alley deals, right through state infrastructure. The deeper they dug, the worse it got. These weren't dealers in hoodies on street corners. These were insiders, badges, signatures, oaths. The shield wasn't attacked from the outside. It cracked from the inside. The titles were sickening patrolman, city officer, deputy sheriff, assistant court clerk. Each one held a key. Each one looked the other way. Together, they built a silent rail line, a state-funded distribution network running meth, fentanyl, and synthetic pills straight through Georgia towns, schools, and neighborhoods. The agents traced the supply chain, and what they found made blood run cold. Shipments were scheduled during normal government office hours. The first phase of the FBI operation ended in 47 arrests, including police officers, sheriff's deputies, and 2 sitting sheriffs. Packages were moved straight through the Georgia State Capitol mailroom. Evidence was stored in municipal buildings owned by the state itself.
The FBI operation ended in dozens arrested, including police officers, sheriff's deputies, and 2 sheriffs.
The cocaine didn't start in Georgia. It was trafficked in by a paramilitary drug network known as Sombra Negra del Sur, a violent syndicate operating from Texas to the Carolinas. They're based northern Mexico. Their highway, U.S. state infrastructure. This is a system infected from the inside. Badges, titles, oaths. Things meant to serve the people, now turned into weapons against them, and the question isn't who anymore. The question is how far, because the next step won't be silent. It will be a war. This is where the quiet investigation ends and the war begins. At 4:01 a.m., inside a federal command post just outside Savannah, a digital map of Georgia glowed with red markers. Each marker was a breach point: storage lots, drop houses, abandoned motels, and supply apartments buried inside normal neighborhoods. At 4:01 a.m., a single message appeared on a secured screen: action, all units. Then everything moved. FBI, DEA, and state tactical teams deployed across 5 Georgia counties all at once. 17 targets, 16 minutes. No warning, no second chances. In Warner Robins, armored trucks boxed in a 1-story auto shop near a junkyard. Agents lined the door. A white flash, a breach charge. The steel swung open. Inside, 3 men reached for their weapons. They never got to fire. Flashbangs cracked like lightning, echoes trapped in steel walls. At the same time in Augusta, a warehouse disguised as a farm supply store hid something else beneath the tarps. 230 pounds of cocaine, 110 pounds of fentanyl, wrapped, sealed, stamped for delivery. The operation didn't stay quiet. In Columbus, a security feed in a service garage showed motion. Seconds later, suspects grabbed rifles and bolted for the alley. Overhead, a Black Hawk tore through the clouds. Its rotors thundered over rooftops. A voice boomed from the speaker. "Drop your weapons. You are surrounded." They didn't listen. Gunfire lit the alley. Brick walls flashed with muzzle bursts. Glass shattered. Burn marks streaked the concrete. A DEA agent took cover behind a dumpster. 2 FBI agents moved forward, disciplined. Calm short bursts, clear eyes, steady hands. Most people would look away here, but you're still here. That means you want to understand what really happened. 9 minutes later, it ended. 3 suspects were down. 2 dropped their guns, their hands trembling. The exits they trusted, gone. They thought the danger came from the outside, but the real enemy was already wearing the uniform. This wasn't enforcement. This was cleansing from within. By sunrise, the numbers were impossible to ignore, bringing the statewide total to just over 100 arrests, 2.1 tons of narcotics seized across 3 counties, 141 weapons, including full auto AK variants and foreign-made carbines. Dozens of encrypted phones and ledgers filled with nicknames, codes, and payouts. News helicopters circled the sky. Families watched from porches and across Georgia. One truth was now inescapable. This wasn't a local bust. This was a drug empire, running next to schools, churches, businesses, and now for the first time, it was bleeding.
Very, very grateful for the FBI's work in protecting the community and keeping people safe.
But the raid did something else. Those traces were about to expose the entire skeleton of the Georgia network. If you're still here, you're the kind of person who doesn't flinch, doesn't blink, doesn't look away. When the smoke cleared and the suspects were dragged out in cuffs, the real work started. The raid was just the front door. The structure behind it was buried deep, tied to businesses, county offices, private properties, and nonprofits that looked clean on paper. Inside the Federal Data Operations Center in Macon, the walls glowed. Every screen showed pieces of the operation. Agents, financial analysts, cybercrime units, and intel teams worked shoulder to shoulder, every device cloned, every ledger processed, every text decrypted, line by line. As the data came together, a new image formed. Not a street map, a power map. 4 primary corridors ran across Georgia, masked by real freight companies. Trucks moved lumber, grain, building supplies, anything sealed, anything that wouldn't raise a flag. The cocaine Marcus Darnell received was just a dot on a pipeline that ran from Nuevo Laredo through Texas up to Tennessee, then spread into Georgia's commuter belt. Then came the warehouses. What looked like regional food banks turned out to be cold fronts. Behind crates of canned goods, plastic-wrapped drug bricks, stamped with coded purity levels and color labels for destination zones, then came the money. 2 private poker clubs, no signs, no websites, just rented buildings with side doors. Chips turned to cash. Cash turned to deposit shell corporations tied to Nevada, Delaware, and the Virgin Islands. No red flags, no audits. The money flowed like it belonged there. But the most disturbing detail came from the charity records a nonprofit claiming to serve rural youth programs had funneled over $13.7 million in donations. The donor names were fake. The money came from drug sales, and that same nonprofit issued security contracts, speaker fees, and consulting retainers to sitting officials. The face of the network was kindness. It wore a smile. It said community. But behind the brochures was death. Families were burying their children while the same network paid for ribbon cuttings. This was the heartbreak. The cartel didn't hide in darkness. It wore the mask of normal life. Your cousin's boss, your school board donor, your elected official, they didn't need to threaten trust. They bought it. As the final pins hit the investigation board, the room went silent. The numbers told the story. About $240 million in annual movement. Thousands of homes were affected. State infrastructure is compromised at every level. But then came something else. Weak points. Names that showed up again and again. Key routes relying on small crews. Choke points. Gaps. It was wide, but it wasn't deep. And that meant it could break. The call was made. The next phase wouldn't be surveillance. It would be purification. The shield had been stained. Now it will be cleaned. The raids had exposed the network. The map had revealed its shape. But the hardest part was just beginning. Because the cartel's most powerful weapon wasn't the drugs it moved. It was the people it had already taken with it. At dawn, unmarked federal vans rolled toward police precincts, county offices, and city buildings across Georgia. These weren't the loud, chaotic entries of the first wave. These were slow, clean, surgical, inevitable. Inside a district station in Albany, officers gathered around morning briefings like any other day until federal agents stepped through the front doors. No rifles raised, just sealed warrants. A lieutenant with 22 years of service stood frozen as his badge and weapon were taken. A detective once awarded for cleaning up gang crime was the first to lower his head when his own cuffs locked tight. A procurement official blinked as agents reached into a file cabinet, pulling out envelopes stuffed with fake community outreach funds. 19 police officers, 3 municipal employees, and 1 state operations advisor, all taken into custody before lunch. No screaming, no protests, just silence. The kind of silence that crushes a room. Some looked away, some stared at the floor, some just watched, eyes full of the pain of knowing they'd felt something was wrong. They just hadn't known it ran this deep. If you're still watching this, you're the kind of person who doesn't ignore what others pretend not to see. The betrayal didn't come from strangers in the shadows. It came from the people trusted to guard the shield. Badges, titles, oaths, turned into weapons against the public outside. On the sidewalk, an older man clutched a folded American flag, the same one he donated to the station after his son was killed in Afghanistan. He watched the officers walk out in cuffs, quiet, no shouting, no questions. Just the face of a man realizing that the badge he trusted had betrayed him. Crowds formed across Columbus, Athens, and Valdosta. Some were angry, some are heartbroken, but most just stood, still, stunned, broken. Because it wasn't strangers who poisoned Georgia's towns, it was the very people they trusted to protect them. In Atlanta, the governor addressed the state. His voice didn't thunder. It was measured, controlled, like a man trying to steady the weight of a fractured institution. If the badge betrays the people, the shield is broken. And when the shield is broken, we don't look away, we fix it. We face it. In response, the State Integrity Oversight Commission was formed. An independent authority granted full access to audit law enforcement units, government agencies, financial accounts, and procurement pipelines connected to state operations. The mission wasn't complicated. Restore trust where it was broken, rebuild systems where they'd been abused, protect the people who were left unprotected. It would not move quickly, it would not move cleanly, but it had started. Darnell's arrest had once looked like a single story. Now it was understood for what it really was. A signal flare, a warning shot, proof of how close the collapse had come. And from this point forward, Georgia would not look away. The shield would stand again, clean, unbroken. watched by those who refused to be silent. When the last door slammed shut, when the final ledger was copied and sealed, when the badges were dropped into evidence bags, Georgia stood still. Not in triumph, not in relief, in something heavier, something real. Because what unfolded here, it was never just about cocaine or guns or dirty money. It was about trust. The invisible thread between people and the institutions sworn to protect them. And that thread had been cut from the inside the warehouse takedowns, the arrests inside city halls, the gunfire echoed through alleys, shipping yards, and loading docks. All of it led to one truth that hurt more than the drugs ever could. The enemy wasn't just across borders, it wore uniforms. It sat in office chairs, shook hands and smiled. But the same state that was breached also fought back. Not with silence, not with excuses, with exposure, with audits, with names. Badges were taken, offices cleared, files opened, and the names, they were spoken out loud. No fear, no protection. In total, agents seized approximately 2.4 tons of narcotics, recovered 141 weapons, and arrested over 100 individuals across Georgia. And now only one question hangs in the air. What do we do next? This wasn't just corruption, this was infiltration from inside the system, and now there are only two sides, those who stay silent and those who defend the shield. If you're still here, you're not just watching, you're a part of this. Hit like, so this story reaches the next person who still doesn't believe it can happen. Comment below. Shield or silence? Which side are you on? And subscribe, because the next chapter has already begun.